let's take down the next circuit.
Punch-Out tells the story of your character, Little Mac, and his training in order to become the world boxing champion. Punch-Out has a lot in common with the old NES Mike Tyson Punch-Out. It's got 12 of the same characters that come back, and basically it's like a remaking with a couple new features added in. Most of the game takes place during career mode, which is where you begin a career and you have to fight your way through your opponents in your quest to become the world boxing champion. So first thing, whenever you start your career, you go into the ring and you get to see your first opponent. And as you click on him, you get to see a little bit of info about him, his height and his weight and where he's from. And one of the additions that I really liked was they have little cutscenes before you start the fight with an opponent. And I thought they were kind of funny. You know, they didn't have that in the old NES version, so it was cool. And they also have some animations whenever you knock characters out and added things like that. I played this game using the traditional NES style controller. I turned the Wiimote sideways and used the 1 and 2 button to punch and the left and right to dodge. You could press down and he would duck forward, and you could also hit up and block. Now you could also use it more towards the Wii Sports style where you actually have to swing the Wiimote and the nunchuck. I used to like the NES version, so I like the basic style, and that's the one that I used for the whole game. This game gets progressively more and more difficult as you play through. This first opponent, you don't really need to have any strategy or anything like that. You could just throw punches and dodge, and you'll be able to land enough in order to knock him out. There weren't many things that bothered me about this game, but one of them was that Mario wasn't the ref anymore. They brought in this normal guy, and I don't know, it's not very big of a difference, but it just kind of bothered me. I really liked that from the old one whenever Mario came out and counted out. Here's another opponent. His name's Bear Hugger, and he's from Super Punch-Out on the Super Nintendo. And he's still not very difficult. He's not real far into the game, but he requires a little bit more strategy in order to defeat him. Basically, the strategy is not real difficult. He has a left hook and he has a right punch that he comes down on you with. And basically you just have to wait, and whenever he looks like he's going to throw those punches, you just dodge to the left or right. But he's also got this other attack, which is his bear hug type attack, and he says, "Do you want a hug?" And whenever he says that, he comes in and he tries to grab you, and it does a lot of damage. So whenever that comes, you have to duck down. That's the only dodge that will avoid it. So it adds a little bit more strategy. You have to kind of be able to read when things are coming, and as you go through the game, they get more and more difficult. So there's not really too much more to say about the game. It's not a really complicated game. Some of the enemies later on, they'll take you a bunch of tries before you can figure out what you need to do exactly to defeat them. And it kind of tests your quick reflexes to see if whenever they have their signs that they're going to throw a punch, you know, it takes a little while to get used to the timing to make sure you're able to dodge them or throw another punch to counteract their attack. I think the game's definitely worth buying. It's really cool trying to figure out how to defeat the enemies. It's almost like they're puzzles. You have to fight them a couple times until you realize exactly what their triggers are and how to interrupt their attacks. Punch-Out shouldn't take that long to complete. I'd say almost everyone would be able to beat it in less than 10 hours. And if you've played the original Nintendo or Super Nintendo Punch-Outs, you'll probably beat it a lot quicker than that. A lot of the opponents are the same, and their weaknesses are extremely similar to the original versions. So, but even though the game doesn't take too long to complete, they've added extra things, like there's new modes after you beat the game where the enemies become more difficult, and they add new features that they didn't have in the first playthrough. So I definitely think that you get enough time out of the game to make it worth buying. So whether you've played the NES or Super Nintendo version, I still think everyone would probably like this game. It's not overly difficult, it's challenging, but it's not too hard that you can't beat the game. So to conclude my review, I'd say if you have a Nintendo Wii, Punch-Out is definitely worth looking into. It was a lot of fun, and I certainly enjoyed it, and I think everyone who plays it will have a lot of fun. And also, if you're worried about getting your money's worth out of the purchase, you could always go out and rent it. I'm sure you could beat the first playthrough in a single renting, but I also think it's worth buying. I'm going to give Punch-Out a score of 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and check out my channel for other game reviews.